Project has 4 main pillars: a policy plan, a personnel database, an online academy, and a playbook for the president's first 180 days in office.
We can be ready to hit the ground running on day 1 of the next administration.
The first pillar is a policy agenda that focuses on dismantling the so-called administrative state, or what some conservatives call the deep state.
Either the deep state destroys America, or we destroy the deep state.
For Project 2025, dismantling the administrative state means purging the civil workforce of tens of thousands of federal employees and replacing them with conservative, pre-vetted picks.
There is a concentration not just of power, but a concentration of radical leftist ideology in these employees. Hopefully, we will see over the next 10 to 20 years the elimination of entire cabinet departments.
The plan would dismantle the Department of Homeland Security, eliminate the Department of Education entirely, and transform the FBI into a political task force that is accountable to the president.
But the leadership of the FBI has been awful and rotten and not transparent for a long time. It is very important that Congress reestablish its purview over the FBI generally, its jurisdiction.
To give a sense of how radical this is, the FBI is an organization that has never been run by a Democrat. And so this is an organization that in its bones is a fairly conservative organization, and where now you have right-wing voices saying that it should be eliminated.
The playbook also outlines a plan to bring many federal agencies, like the Department of Justice, under more direct presidential control.
What Project 2025 articulates is the idea that the president should be the one directing the activities of the Department of Justice, even if that means that the president will not be investigated, or that the DOJ will be sent to attack the president's political enemies.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
The Heritage Foundation says it wants to ensure that what remains of this whittled-down federal bureaucracy is conservative, not just for the next president, but for a long time to come. Pillar 2, personnel database. The Heritage Foundation has already contracted the technology company Oracle to build this database, kind of like a conservative networking platform.
We've recruited Americans all over the country, and so we've had well over 11,000 people who've applied to be considered by the next president and his administration.
Trump really emphasizes loyalty, and you see those practices now being adopted by Project 2025, where you fill out a form that essentially indicates if you are loyal to President Trump or not.
Once they're fully vetted, they can move on to Pillar 3, an online presidential administration academy that would train future bureaucrats in conservative values and governing.
So we want these people who are competent, who have great credentials, to be prepared for the specific job that they will have.
Project 2025 provides detailed policy plans for dozens of government agencies, outlining ways to create de facto abortion bans, slash federal investment in renewable energy, and roll back environmental regulations. Here, you can see several sections dedicated to consolidating U.S. immigration agencies and expanding their power.
Number one, we have to close the border. We do have to initiate the largest mass deportation project in the history of this country. The 12 million people who've come in as illegal aliens must be sent back to their native countries.
But how legally sound are these policy proposals, and what would they look like in practice? That's where Pillar 4 comes in, the playbook for the first 180 days of a conservative presidency. A big part of the plan is modeled off of a Trump-era policy called Schedule F.
Schedule F is originally an executive order that Trump signed that would allow him to turn thousands of career civil servants into political appointees that he could then fire if they displeased him in any way, and then have to be more responsive to a president who in the past has shown a willingness to fire people for disloyalty rather than for competence.
The Biden administration reversed this order in 2021, but Trump has vowed to bring it back if he is reelected.
First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats and I will wield that power very aggressively.
I think Schedule F is not just possible, but it's certainly an incredible priority of a second Trump administration. The problem with Schedule F is that there is no real limitation to the number of people who could be converted.
Underpinning many of Project 2025's policy proposals is a legal principle called the unitary executive theory. It is based on a clause in the Constitution that says the executive power is vested in the president.
Project 2025 assumption is that the president has something called unitary executive authority. This gives him enormous untested powers to essentially do whatever he wants and reduces the power of Congress to check those powers.
Conservative Supreme Court justices, like Justice Samuel Alito, have signaled support for the unitary executive theory and skepticism of federal agencies.
The current Supreme Court has shown itself to be very open to claims that the president has enormous executive authority and so should be able to hire and fire people at will.
In July, the Supreme Court granted presidents immunity for any official acts taken while in office. Legal experts say this decision could set the stage for expanding presidential power.
Trump would be looking at a Supreme Court that would be quite sympathetic to his claims that he has extraordinary executive powers, far more than previous presidents, and would allow him to do things that previous Supreme Courts would have checked with other presidents.
Other legal scholars say the unitary executive theory and some of Project 2025's more radical proposals simply aren't realistic.
It will inevitably draw dozens of lawsuits if all of its policies are implemented. So you cannot eliminate an agency without Congress agreeing to that. Congress has the power to create agencies and to eliminate agencies unless the Supreme Court suddenly grants new power to the president.
Project 2025 has garnered increased attention on social media.
Project 2025.
Project 2025.
Project 2025.
As Democrats shine a spotlight on its sweeping proposals.
Project 2025 will destroy America. Look it up.
This agenda is a fascist, authoritarian dictator's dream. And we know that that is exactly who Donald Trump wants to be.
Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman is part of the Stop Project 2025 task force.
So what we are trying to do is make sure that every American who is going to go to the ballot box on November 5th knows exactly what they will get if Donald Trump wins.
More recently, Trump made moves to distance himself from Project 2025. In a Truth Social post, he said he knew nothing about it, calling some of the proposals ridiculous and abysmal. Goldman says these statements are part of a larger political strategy.
So many of his former top officials are at the head of Project 2025. It is a political calculation that he's making because he recognizes that the American people do not support this extremist agenda.
President Trump is trying to win a presidential campaign, and we understand that he has to make political considerations. Given the millions of dollars that the left has spent attacking Project 2025 because they have nothing else to run on, I wasn't surprised to see President Trump's statement, nor are there any hard feelings.
Back in 2022, Trump spoke to the Heritage Foundation and was direct about its role in crafting future policy.
This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
Trump's own policy platform closely resembles many of Project 2025's proposals, too. From cracking down on immigration to blocking gender-affirming healthcare and stopping a woke and weaponized government.
Given the persuasiveness of these ideas, the overlap that exists between Trump's stated priorities and the priorities of the project, that will all sort itself out. It really is the conservative playbook, not just for the next year or two, but hopefully for the next generation.